Coming up today, Korea's National Assembly passes a $332 billion budget for next year. That's almost 3% more than this year's budget. Lawmakers also sign off on 5 livelihood-related bills. President Park Geun-hye holds summit talks with her Czech counterpart in Prague. The Korean leader calls for bilateral cooperation in building nuclear reactors in the Central European country. Plus, the Korean economy grew at the fastest pace in more than 5 years in the third quarter, helped by stronger consumer spending and a boom in the construction industry. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Thursday, the 3rd of December. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this afternoon: after days of bipartisan wrangling, lawmakers at the National Assembly have passed a $332 billion budget bill for 2016. They also approved 5 key bills aimed at improving the lives of ordinary people. Ji Myung-gil starts us off.
Lawmakers had a busy day on Thursday. They passed the 2016 budget and 5 other key bills while agreeing to continue discussion on more contentious pending legislation. Here's what's in the 2016 budget. The government has allocated $105 billion for welfare, $45 billion for education, $19 billion for R&D and social overhead capital, $33 billion for defense, $5.6 billion for culture and tourism, $4 billion for foreign affairs and unification, and the rest for other expenses related to such things as public safety, agriculture and fisheries, the environment, energy, and small businesses. The 2016 budget is nearly 3% or $9.4 billion higher than this year's, but $257 million less than the original plan submitted by the government. Lawmakers also passed 5 other bills on Thursday. 2 of the 5 were backed by the ruling Saenuri Party. One lays out plans to promote tourism, and the other funds medical tourism and businesses in the healthcare industry seeking to enter the global market. The other 3 bills were backed by the opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party. One for the construction of public postnatal care centers, and another that caps the number of hours medical specialists can work. A third bill seeks to prevent conglomerates from using forceful sales tactics with their suppliers, most of which are small businesses. Lawmakers also passed a bill that allows the government to collect income tax from clergy members for the first time starting in 2018. Meanwhile, the rival parties agreed to hold extra sessions to discuss other contentious bills related to counterterrorism initiatives, North Korea's human rights record, and labor reform. They're seeking to vote on the bills by no later than December 9th, when the current parliamentary session ends. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Now, in related parliamentary business, members of the clergy in Korea will soon have to pay income tax following the passage of another bill that follows nearly 50 years of debate on the subject. Shin Se-min reports.
Starting in 2018, all members of the clergy will have to pay income tax. The related bill was passed by the National Assembly early Wednesday after 47 years of debate in Korea. Under the newly passed legislation, between 20 and 80% of a clergy member's earnings will be tax-exempt, classified as necessary expenses, with the percentage dependent on the person's total income. Breaking it down, clergy members who make $34,000 or less per year will see only 20% of their income taxed, while the percentage will be higher for those with higher incomes. The current government had been pushing the bill as part of its efforts to bring greater equality to taxation. Previous efforts had failed due to opposition from religious leaders who said their work was a spiritual service, not labor. Reflecting the sensitivity of the issue, the new law will not go into effect for another 2 years. Lawmakers will continue their deliberations on 5 contentious labor reform bills, which include proposals to revise current labor standards, employment insurance, and the employment quota for young people at large companies. The delay has left many wondering when the bills will get through. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, President Park Geun-hye is in Prague, the final stop of her 7-day tour of Europe. On Wednesday, the Korean leader met with her Czech counterpart and discussed ways to boost economic cooperation. For more, our Hwang Sang-hee reports from Prague.
One of the key agreements at Wednesday's summit between President Park and her Czech counterpart Miloš Zeman was boosting cooperation in building nuclear reactors in the Czech Republic. In a joint press conference, President Park said the countries will upgrade their bilateral strategic partnership, which was established in February.
체코 신규 원전 건설 사업과 관련한 협력은 양국에게 호혜적인 이익을 가져다 줄 것으로 기대가 됩니다.
The Czech Republic plans to build 2 nuclear reactors worth nearly $9 billion and is set to select a bidder in 2019. The two leaders also signed other MOUs, agreeing on more cooperation in healthcare, information and communications technology, and the culture industry. Citing the Czech Republic's successful transformation after the collapse of its Soviet-backed regime more than 20 years ago, President Park called for joint efforts in denuclearizing North Korea.
북한이 핵을 포기하고 국제사회에 책임 있는 일원으로 나올 수 있도록 하기 위해서 함께 힘써 나가기로 하였습니다.
The Czech leader said he expects South and North Korea to be reunified in the near future.
I address you not as the South Korean president, but as the Korean president. I am certain that the reunification of the Korean peninsula is near.
Following the summit, President Park met with 250 Korean and Czech officials and business leaders and watched a puppet show put on jointly by the two countries. On Thursday, President Park will hold her first summit with the Visegrad Group, which is comprised of the Czech Republic, Poland, Hungary, and Slovakia. The presidential office says the meeting will provide a new momentum for South Korea to boost its economic cooperation with 4 of the European Union's fastest-growing nations. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News, Prague.
Korea's economic growth in the third quarter quickened from earlier estimates thanks to boosted domestic demand. The country's gross national income has also reversed its downward trend. Our Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Korea grew 1.3% in the July to September period from the previous quarter, expanding at the fastest pace in more than 5 years. That's also higher than the central bank's earlier estimate of 1.2% and gets the economy out of the 0% range that it's been in for the past year and a half. The quickening growth comes on the back of momentum in the construction sector and stronger consumer spending, which pushed up output in the service sector by 1% in the third quarter from the quarter before. The government has been taking action to jumpstart spending, like its Black Friday event in October, benefiting local retailers in the process. The measures come as the country has seen its traditional growth engine exports lose steam due to sluggish global demand. Output in the manufacturing sector grew a mere 0.1% in the third quarter. For the economy to reach the Bank of Korea's 2.7% growth target for this year, the central bank says it needs to expand at least 0.8% in the last quarter of this year. Meanwhile, Korea's gross national income, a gauge of the population's purchasing power, rose 1.4% in the third quarter. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Korea's foreign exchange reserves shrank to just over $368 billion in November, down $1.1 billion from a month earlier. The Bank of Korea attributes the drop to the US dollar appreciation, which led to a devaluation of Korea's non-US dollar assets. The value of foreign reserves held in securities rose $1.9 billion from the previous month, while overseas deposits dropped nearly $3 billion over the cited period. As of the end of October, Korea remained as the 7th largest holder of foreign reserves in the world. Recent satellite imagery appears to show North Korea is digging up a new tunnel at its main nuclear test site. US Research Institute 38 North says the tunnel is in a new area of the Punggye test site where 3 other tunnels have been excavated in the past. A review of imagery over the past 12 months shows newly built covered structures, and they suggest logs seen near the site may have been used to support the new tunnel or to construct new buildings. Now, there are no signs a nuclear test is in the works, but the Institute does say that the new tunnel adds to Pyongyang's ability to conduct additional detonations. North Korea has conducted 3 nuclear tests at the Punggye nuclear test site. And North Korea's most powerful military official has made his first public appearance in more than 3 weeks. There had been speculation Hwang Byung-seo, the director of the General Political Bureau of the Korean People's Army and Kim Jong-un's right-hand man, was in China getting back surgery. Now, North Korea's state media reported Thursday that Hwang accompanied the North Korean leader to a tree nursery unit. 75-year-old Hwang was last seen in public at a state military funeral in early November. Now, the chair of the US Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen, has given the strongest indication yet that the US central bank may be ready to raise interest rates this month for the first time in nearly a decade. Son Jung-in has more.
Speaking to the Economic Club of Washington on Wednesday, Fed Chief Janet Yellen said that waiting too long for a rate hike could have adverse consequences for the U.S. economy. She warned that more delay after having kept the rate near zero for almost 7 years could pose risks to financial stability and drive the country into a recession.
Were the FOMC to delay the start of policy normalization for too long, we would likely end up having to tighten policy relatively abruptly to keep the economy from significantly overshooting both of our goals.
Yellen noted that the U.S. economy has recovered substantially since the 2008 financial crisis and said she believed it would continue growing at a modest pace. She expressed confidence the job market will strengthen and inflation will edge toward the Fed's target of 2% over the next few years.
The economy has come a long way toward the FOMC's objectives of maximum employment and price stability.
In line with her statement, the Federal Reserve released on the same day its latest report that shows the U.S. economy grew at a modest pace in most regions from early October through mid-November. The report, known as the Beige Book, said consumer spending increased in nearly all districts while labor markets strengthened slightly. However, Yellen added that policymakers will need to review incoming data more closely before making a final decision on a rate hike. Yellen's comments and the Fed's report came 2 weeks before its policy board holds its final meeting of the year on December 15th and 16th. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Oil prices slid over 4% on Wednesday on the back of growing US stockpiles, and the strong greenback. US crude for January delivery ended at slightly under $40 a barrel on the New York Mercantile Exchange, down nearly $2 from the day before, and that's the largest one-day percentage decline since October 2012. On the London ICE Futures Exchange, Brent crude for January delivery slid 4.4% to $42.49 a barrel, approaching lows not seen since March 2009. Oil prices were hit by those pro-rate hike comments made by the Federal Reserve chief. A strong dollar makes the dollar-dominated commodity less affordable to those holding other currencies. Prices also dropped as data from the Energy Information Administration showed US crude oil inventories rose 1.2 million barrels last year, up for a 10th straight week. The British Parliament has authorised the bombing of Islamic State targets in Syria, and operations may already be underway. After a 10-hour debate in the House of Commons on Wednesday, MPs voted 397 to 223 in favour of airstrikes. Prime Minister David Cameron welcomed the outcome, saying they had taken the right decision to keep Britain safe. The opposition Labour Party was split in their decision, with many voting against their party leader Jeremy Corbyn, who was staunchly against any kind of military intervention. Now, thousands of anti-war protesters gathered outside the Houses of Parliament during the debate, as you can see, to voice their opposition to military action. RAF Tornado jets have reportedly already set off from a base in Cyprus, although it's unclear where they are heading. Now, 2 suspects have been downed in connection with a shooting rampage at a social services center for disabled people in Southern California. The FBI confirmed that 1 male and 1 female in assault-style clothing were shot dead after an exchange of fire with officers. We're also just hearing that a 3rd suspect has been detained. Now, 1 officer sustained life-threatening injuries in the shootout with the 2 suspects. The identity of all of the suspects has not yet been released. Gunmen opened fire on Wednesday morning local time at a holiday party at the Inland Regional Center in San Bernardino, killing at least 14 people and wounding 17 others before fleeing. Now, the motive for the shooting is not yet known, but officials are not ruling out terrorism. Now, let's take a quick look at the weather before we go, because as you can see by the photo behind me, it is snowing here in Seoul. Around 6 centimetres have fallen since this morning, and we're expected to see even more over the course of the day. Korea's weather agency has issued a heavy snow advisory around the central region, including Gyeonggi-do province, south of the capital, and northern parts of Chungcheongdo province, where we can expect about 8 centimetres of snow. It's also snowing in some southwestern areas, including Jeju Island's mountainous regions. Now, the agency warned that snow will pile up on the roads, so please drive with extra care. And it goes without saying, really, dress warmly, because this evening we'll see the mercury in Seoul dip to -2 degrees Celsius. Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. Thank you, as always, for tuning in to our newscasts, and we'll be back throughout the day with more of them. Goodbye.